it's true that as parents and as teachers, we set the emotional tone for our homes and for our classrooms. It's also true that that's not always very easy to do. And Lynn and I know that firsthand as both parents and clinicians. But we also know that there's 4 proven ways that can help us get better control of ourselves so we can help our children get better control of themselves. And here they are. The first one is breathing. And before we talk about breathing, I want to talk a little bit about the brain because that's a really important part of this whole equation. And I'm going to borrow something from Dr. Daniel Siegel, and that is his handy model of the brain, if you will. And here we have it. In our hands, if we pretend like our arm is the brainstem, that's everything that's coming up into our brain, the part of our brain that we don't have to do anything about because it operates kind of on autopilot. It regulates our heart rate and our breathing. We don't have to think about those things, just happen. So that's our brainstem. Then we have our emotional seat of our brain where the amygdala is housed, and that's where all of our feelings and our responses to things in an emotional way kind of come about. Then we have our highest developed part of our brain, which is our neocortex or our prefrontal cortex, and that kind of can be thought of as something that comes right on top of everything. And this is our highest thinking part of our brain. And when we get stressed out, when we get upset, when we get angry, this is the first part of our brain that kind of disconnects, and it either flies away, that's flight, or it puts up its dukes to fight, or it freezes and it does nothing. So what we're left with is this emotional part of our brain to do all of our thinking for us, which is what gets us in trouble 9 times out of 10. So breathing is the first step to help unhook from that. And when we breathe, when we get upset, we breathe really shallow into our chests. And we need to breathe deeply into our bellies and release that in order to really unhook from our emotional brain and get that prefrontal cortex back on and ready to work for us. So breathing is the first step. The second step is being hopeful, because hope really makes the world go round, and we have to be hopeful that there are brighter days for us, and that every minute that ticks by, the next minute might be the minute, or the next second might be the second when things get better for us again. And I like to think of it like ocean waves, and I teach children in my office here, and also parents that, emotional meltdowns are kind of like ocean waves. They come and they go, they come and they go, and sometimes those waves are pretty small and they trickle in and they kind of recede back and they don't cause many problems, and sometimes they're huge and they kind of take us over and they pull us under and they pull us out to sea a little bit. But eventually those waves calm down and things get better. And we need to remind ourselves that during really difficult times that life does improve and emotions do kind of calm themselves down over time. So when we can keep that in our own mind, we can have a much better chance at helping our children. The next one is thinking positive. Our thoughts control our own feelings. So if I'm thinking to myself, this kid is never going to get manners, this child will never be able to be a productive member of society because he can't do the right thing, he can't say the right thing, he doesn't follow directions, I'm going to stress myself out even more, I'm going to get more upset, and I'm not going to be in my highest thinking part of my brain to help that child and loan that child my brain to help them improve their behavior. So I need to think things like, oh, it looks like he needs a little more help. Let me step in, let me give him a little bit of the tools that I have, and when he seems like he's got it, I'm going to step back out again. That's really the way we need to train our own brains to think so that we can be more effective as parents and as educators. And then finally, I love the idea of using a secret code in your classroom or in your family. And a secret code can be anything that you and your family or your children come up with on your own. And I know one family that used the code Uncle Rumpelstiltskin. And that's a really silly kind of term, but when anybody in that family, from the youngest child all the way up to one of the parents, would say Uncle Rumpelstiltskin, everybody knew. All right, hands off, back off, walk away, get your hand. Nobody says anything else. We're all going to take a break. We're going to go take care of ourselves. We're going to calm down so we can come back and talk about how to solve this problem. I hope those 4 tips are helpful to you, and you'll find many, many more in Bloom. Thanks for joining us today.